Welcome to a chapter a day. Listen closely. Your life is not happening to you. It is responding to you. Every result you see, every struggle you repeat, every breakthrough you crave is shaped by the thoughts you rehearse, the beliefs you obey, and the standards you accept. Most people live on autopilot. They wake up tired. They think the same thoughts. They make the same excuses. And they wonder why nothing changes. But you are not here by accident. You are here because something inside you knows the truth. You were meant for more discipline, more clarity, more power. This audiobook is not entertainment. It is a reprogramming. Over the next few hours, you will learn how the mind shapes reality, why repetition is the key to transformation, and how ordinary people unlock extraordinary lives by mastering their inner world. You will hear the same truths again and again, on purpose, because repetition builds identity, and identity builds destiny. This is your wake-up call. If you listen passively, nothing changes. But if you listen actively, if you decide that today is the day you stop negotiating with your potential, then everything changes. Stay with me. This is where your old limits end, and your real life begins. Chapter 1. Your mind is the architect of your reality. Everything begins in the mind. Not action, not luck, not circumstances. Thought first. Always. Before you feel anything, you think something. Before you act, you decide. Before you succeed or fail, you rehearse a belief, often without realizing it. This is not philosophy. This is cause and effect. Your life is not random. Your results are not accidental. They are constructed, thought by thought, day by day. Thoughts become actions. Actions become habits. Habits become identity. Identity becomes destiny. Say it again. Thoughts become actions. Actions become habits. This is the foundation of transformation. This is the true source of wealth. Not money. Not opportunity. Mind mastery. Most people live in reaction mode. They react to emotions. They react to circumstances. They react to other people's expectations. But the disciplined individual lives in creation mode. They choose their thoughts. They train their focus. They understand the spiritual science behind abundance. What you consistently think about, you energize. And what you energize, you move toward. Look at elite athletes. Before they ever win, they see it. They rehearse the movement. They repeat the outcome in their mind. Their body follows their mind's instructions. Olympic swimmers visualize every stroke before touching the water. Championship fighters rehearse victory before entering the ring. They are not hoping. They are programming. This is not about talent. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. Discipline of thought. Entrepreneurs understand this too. Before a business exists, it lives in the mind. Before revenue appears, belief must stabilize. Before execution becomes relentless, identity must change. The entrepreneur doesn't say, "I hope this works." They say, "This is who I am. This is what I do." Change the mind. Change the life. Now look at recovery stories. People who rebuild after loss, addiction, or failure. They don't start by fixing everything at once. They start by changing the internal narrative. They stop saying, "This is who I've always been." They start saying, "This is who I'm becoming." That shift changes behavior. That behavior changes habits. Those habits change outcomes. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity. Your brain believes what you tell it repeatedly. It doesn't argue. It obeys. If you tell yourself you're tired, you act tired. If you tell yourself you're behind, you hesitate. If you tell yourself success is hard, you sabotage. But if you tell yourself, "I am disciplined. I finish what I start. I do the work regardless of mood," your nervous system aligns. Your actions follow. This is not about pretending. It's about training. You train your body at the gym. You train your skills at work. But most people never train their mind. They let it wander. They let it doubt. They let it repeat old stories. And then they wonder why nothing changes. This is the true source of wealth. Control the inner world, and the outer world responds. Here is the hard truth. Your thoughts today are building your life tomorrow. Not someday. Not eventually. Right now. So here is the discipline. You must interrupt unconscious thinking. You must notice the moment a weak thought appears. And you must replace it. Not once. Not occasionally. Relentlessly. Thought replacement is the work. This is how identity is formed. When doubt appears, you say, "This is not useful." When fear appears, you say, "This is feedback, not a stop sign." When excuses appear, you say, "It's not about motivation. It's about discipline." Say it again. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. You don't wait to feel ready. You act your way into belief. This is how habits are born. Small actions, repeated daily, backed by a new internal standard. The mind learns through repetition. So you repeat on purpose. You repeat clarity. You repeat focus. You repeat self-respect. This is how you awaken your creative power to attract prosperity. Prosperity is not just money. It's energy. It's confidence. It's momentum. And momentum always starts internally. Let me be clear. You will not think perfectly. You will not eliminate doubt completely. That is not the goal. The goal is dominance. Dominance of direction. Even with fear, you move forward. Even with discomfort, you act. Even with uncertainty, you decide. That decision strengthens identity. Identity shapes habit. Habit shapes destiny. Change the mind. Change the life. This chapter is your foundation. Without it, nothing else holds. You now understand the first law. Your inner world creates your outer results. Master this, and everything else becomes possible. You've learned how thoughts become actions, how actions become habits, how habits build identity. Now it's time to go deeper. Because once you understand that your mind creates reality, the next step is learning how to train it deliberately. You've mastered awareness. Now you must master repetition. Chapter 2. You become what you rehearse daily. Everything you become is rehearsed first. Nothing shows up by accident. No confidence. No discipline. No success. You rehearse it into existence. Your brain is not logical. It is obedient. It does not care whether an experience is real or imagined. It only cares about repetition. This is one of the most powerful truths you will ever learn. And it explains why most people stay stuck. Because whatever you rehearse internally, you reinforce neurologically. The brain fires the same neural pathways whether you do something or imagine doing it vividly. This is not belief. This is science. Mental rehearsal creates physical readiness. That's why visualization works. That's why affirmations, when repeated correctly, rebuild identity. That's why fear grows stronger the more you imagine failure. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. And most people are rehearsing the wrong life. They rehearse worry. They rehearse regret. They rehearse conversations that never happen. They rehearse failure before it arrives. And then they wonder why confidence never shows up. But elite performers do the opposite. They rehearse success before it's visible. Athletes do this relentlessly. Before the competition begins, they have already won in their mind. A sprinter visualizes the start, the acceleration, the finish line. A basketball player rehearses the shot, the release, the swish. Their body follows their mental instruction. What you practice in private, you perform in public. Say it again. What you practice in private, you perform in public. This is not motivation. This is conditioning. Military units understand this deeply. They rehearse missions again and again, not because they expect perfection, but because under pressure, the brain defaults to training. When chaos hits, you don't rise to confidence. You fall to your rehearsals. That's why preparation is everything. Elite performers don't wait for inspiration. They install behavior. They rehearse discipline when no one is watching. They rehearse focus when it's uncomfortable. They rehearse execution when it's boring. And when the moment arrives, they don't hesitate. They act. This is the true source of wealth. Not luck. Not timing. Conditioning. Look at entrepreneurs who scale. They rehearse decisions daily. They practice thinking clearly under pressure. They rehearse problem-solving instead of panic. They don't ask, "Can I do this?" They ask, "What's the next move?" That mindset didn't appear overnight. It was rehearsed. Every morning, every challenge, every failure. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity by rehearsing the version of you that already handles success. Because here's the truth. Your future self must be trained in advance. If you want confidence, rehearse confidence. If you want discipline, rehearse discipline. If you want wealth, rehearse responsibility. Your brain believes repetition, not desire. Wanting changes nothing. Rehearsing changes everything. This is where most people fail. They rehearse weakness all day long. They say, "I'm tired." They say, "I'm overwhelmed." They say, "I'll start tomorrow." That language becomes identity. That identity becomes behavior. It's not about intelligence. It's not about resources. It's about rehearsal. What you say to yourself matters. What you imagine matters. What you repeat matters. This is why elite performers guard their mental environment aggressively. They don't consume random noise. They don't dwell on negativity. They don't entertain self-doubt. They train their mind like a weapon. You must do the same. Here is the discipline. Every day, you rehearse 3 things. How you show up under pressure. How you respond to discomfort. How you execute when motivation is gone. You visualize yourself doing the hard thing calmly. You see yourself finishing. You hear yourself speaking with certainty. Not once. Not occasionally. Daily. This is how you install confidence. This is how you create momentum. The brain says, "I've been here before." And the body follows. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. You are not attracting outcomes. You are rehearsing identities. And identities create outcomes automatically. What you practice in private, you perform in public. So ask yourself honestly, what are you rehearsing right now? Excuses? Fear? Distraction? Or discipline? Focus? Execution? There is no neutral rehearsal. Everything trains something. This chapter is your wake-up call. If you don't choose your rehearsals, your environment will choose them for you. And your environment will always train you to stay the same. Change the rehearsal. Change the identity. Change the life. You now understand that repetition is power. Mental rehearsal is the blueprint. But repetition without direction is dangerous. Because the next question becomes, what are you repeating, and why? You've learned how rehearsal shapes identity. Now it's time to confront the greatest threat to growth. Comfort. You've trained your mind. Now you must challenge your habits. Chapter 3. Comfort is the enemy of growth. Your brain is wired for comfort, not greatness, not expansion. Comfort. This is not a flaw. It is survival programming. The brain's job is to keep you safe, not successful. It wants predictability. It wants familiarity. It wants the known, even if the known is painful. That is why change feels uncomfortable. That is why discipline feels heavy. That is why growth feels threatening. And that is exactly why comfort is dangerous. Comfort feels good in the moment, but it quietly erodes ambition. It dulls urgency. It softens standards. If it's comfortable, it's costing you. Say it again. If it's comfortable, it's costing you. This is the true source of stagnation. Not lack of talent. Not lack of opportunity. Excess comfort. Look at people stuck in the same routine for years. Same complaints. Same habits. Same results. They didn't fail dramatically. They drifted slowly. They chose ease over effort, convenience over discipline, familiar pain over unfamiliar growth. And the brain rewarded them with comfort chemicals, with avoidance, with justification. This is fine. I'll change later. I deserve a break. That language is comfort protecting itself. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Growth requires pressure. Expansion requires resistance. Muscle only grows under tension. Skill only sharpens under strain. Character only forms under challenge. Remove the pressure and growth stops. Elite performers understand this instinctively. Athletes seek discomfort on purpose. They train when it hurts. They push past limits daily. Why? Because they know comfort is regression. Entrepreneurs embrace pressure. They make hard decisions. They sit in uncertainty. They choose responsibility over ease. And while others avoid discomfort, they compound advantage. This is the true source of wealth, the willingness to do what others avoid. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity by embracing pressure instead of running from it. Here is the hard truth. Your comfort zone is perfectly designed to keep you exactly where you are. Same income, same energy, same confidence level. Nothing new enters comfort. No growth, no breakthroughs, no transformation. And the longer you stay comfortable, the harder discomfort feels. Comfort weakens tolerance. Discomfort strengthens capacity. That's why small challenges matter. That's why discipline must be daily. This is not about suffering. It's about training. You train your nervous system to handle more. You train your mind to stay calm under stress. You train your identity to expect effort. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. Say it again. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. The disciplined person does uncomfortable things before they feel ready. The undisciplined person waits and stays the same. Comfort whispers lies. It says, you can do it tomorrow. It says, you've done enough. It says, don't push too hard. But comfort never tells you the cost. The cost is momentum. The cost is self-respect. The cost is unrealized potential. If it's comfortable, it's costing you. Look at daily habits. Comfort chooses the couch over movement. Comfort chooses scrolling over focus. Comfort chooses silence over hard conversations. And each choice reinforces an identity that avoids effort, an identity that negotiates with weakness. But disciplined individuals don't negotiate. They decide once, and they execute daily. They don't wait to feel like it. They move first, because they understand something critical. Discomfort is temporary. Regret is permanent. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Short-term discomfort creates long-term freedom. Long-term comfort creates long-term limitation. You must reframe discomfort. Discomfort is not danger. Discomfort is not failure. Discomfort is feedback. It means you're stretching. It means you're growing. It means you're leaving the old identity behind. That's why resistance shows up. That's why excuses appear. That's why the mind tries to pull you back. The brain fears the unknown. But the unknown is where growth lives. So here is the discipline. Every day, choose one uncomfortable action on purpose. One thing you've been avoiding. One task that builds strength. Not dramatic. Not extreme. Consistent. Cold effort over warm comfort. This is how you build tolerance. This is how you raise standards. This is how you awaken your creative power to attract prosperity. Because prosperity follows those who can handle pressure. Comfort creates fragility. Pressure creates resilience. And resilience creates opportunity. If it's comfortable, it's costing you. Let that sentence guide your choices. Let it interrupt autopilot. Let it sharpen your decisions. You now understand the danger of comfort. You see how it quietly erodes ambition. But discomfort alone is not enough. You must learn how to apply pressure with structure. Because pressure without discipline becomes chaos. You've learned to leave comfort. Now it's time to build control. Chapter 4. Discipline creates freedom. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think discipline is restriction. They think discipline is punishment. They think discipline is suffering. That misunderstanding keeps them trapped. Because discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect. Read that again. Discipline is self-respect. Every disciplined action sends a message to your nervous system. I can trust myself. I do what I say. I am in control. And control creates freedom. Chaos feels free at first. No rules. No structure. No boundaries. But chaos always ends in stress. In anxiety. In limitation. Structure feels restrictive at first. But structure removes decision fatigue. Structure removes uncertainty. Structure removes excuses. And what remains is freedom. This is the truth most people never learn. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to discipline. Say it again. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to discipline. Motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. It disappears under pressure. Discipline is installed. It stays when motivation leaves. High achievers understand this deeply. Look at elite performers. Their days are structured. Their routines are consistent. Their habits are non-negotiable. Not because they are robotic, but because structure liberates their mind. They don't wake up asking, should I train today? Should I focus today? Should I do the work? The decision has already been made. That is freedom. This is the true source of wealth. Not money. Reliability. The ability to execute regardless of mood. Entrepreneurs who scale don't rely on inspiration. They rely on systems. They wake up at the same time. They plan their priorities. They protect their focus. Structure creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates opportunity. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Order creates flow. When your internal world is structured, your external world responds. But undisciplined lives are loud. Noisy thoughts. Scattered focus. Constant reaction. That chaos drains energy. And drained energy cannot build anything meaningful. Discipline simplifies life. Fewer decisions. Clear priorities. Defined standards. And with that simplicity comes freedom. Freedom from procrastination. Freedom from regret. Freedom from emotional chaos. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity by building structure that supports your future self. Here is where people resist. They say, I don't want to be rigid. They say, I like flexibility. They say, I don't want my life controlled. But look closer. They are already controlled. By distraction. By impulses. By moods. Discipline doesn't remove freedom. It reclaims it. Because when you don't control your schedule, something else will. Social media will. Other people will. Your weakest impulses will. And they will waste your potential quietly. Discipline is choosing your constraints. It's saying, I will train at this time. I will focus during these hours. I will rest deliberately, not accidentally. That intentionality builds power. This is not about perfection. It's about consistency. High achievers miss days. They fail sometimes. They adjust. But they never abandon structure. Because structure protects identity. Remember this. The person you are becoming needs routine. Not chaos. Not randomness. Repetition. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to discipline. So when life hits hard, when stress appears, when emotions run high, you don't collapse. You execute. That execution builds self-trust. Self-trust builds confidence. Confidence expands capacity. This is the true source of wealth. Inner order. Let's make this practical. Discipline starts small. Fixed wake-up time. Defined work block. Non-negotiable movement. Not dramatic. Not extreme. Consistent. The brain loves predictability. Structure calms it. Calm increases focus. And focused energy creates results. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Clarity attracts opportunity. Discipline also protects your energy. You stop negotiating with distractions. You stop entertaining every impulse. You stop reacting to everything. That mental quiet allows creativity to emerge. Freedom is not doing whatever you want. Freedom is doing what matters without resistance. And discipline is the bridge. If your life feels heavy, it's not because you're doing too much. It's because you lack structure. Add structure and watch resistance drop. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to discipline. Let that phrase guide your days. Let it anchor your habits. Let it define your identity. You are not becoming disciplined to restrict your life. You are becoming disciplined to expand it. You've learned that comfort limits growth. You've learned that discipline creates freedom. Now comes the next level. Because discipline without standards still drifts. You must decide what is acceptable and what is no longer allowed. You've built structure. Now it's time to raise expectations. Chapter 5. Your standards decide your future. Your future is not decided by your goals. It is decided by your standards. Goals are what you want. Standards are what you tolerate. And what you tolerate becomes your baseline. This is one of the most uncomfortable truths, and one of the most liberating, because nothing changes until standards change. You don't rise to the level of your dreams. You fall to the level of your standards. Say it again. You fall to the level of your standards. Look at your life honestly. What you accept in relationships. What you allow in your health. What you tolerate in your finances. That is your real standard. Not what you say. Not what you post. What you permit. This is the true source of wealth. Not desire, standards. Most people think they need more motivation. They think they need better opportunities. They think they need more confidence. But the real issue is tolerance. They tolerate disrespect. They tolerate inconsistency. They tolerate mediocrity. And tolerance becomes identity. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Life responds to what you allow. Let's start with relationships. If you tolerate being talked down to, if you tolerate broken promises, if you tolerate misalignment, that becomes normal. Not because you want it, but because you accepted it. Raising standards in relationships is uncomfortable. It requires boundaries. It requires self-respect. It requires the willingness to walk away. But every time you don't, you reinforce the message. This is what I deserve. Raise the standard, raise the outcome. Now look at health. If you tolerate low energy, poor sleep, constant fatigue, that becomes your baseline. You stop questioning it. You normalize it. You build your life around it. But high performers don't tolerate low energy. They don't negotiate with basic health. They protect sleep. They move daily. They fuel intentionally. Not because it's easy, but because the standard demands it. This is the true source of wealth. Energy precedes everything. No energy, no execution. No execution, no results. Raise the standard, raise the outcome. Now finances. If you tolerate overdrafts, impulse spending, avoidance of responsibility, money will always feel heavy. Not because money is hard, but because standards are low. Financial growth begins with tolerance. What expenses do you allow without question? What habits do you excuse? What responsibilities do you avoid? Raising standards with money means clarity, tracking, ownership. It means saying, this stops now. That moment changes identity. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity by refusing to live below your potential. Here's the truth most people avoid. Raising standards will cost you comfort. It may cost you people. It may cost you old habits. But low standards cost you your future. Standards create pressure. Pressure creates growth. That's why resistance appears when you raise them. The brain says, "This is too much. This is unnecessary. This is uncomfortable." But discomfort is the signal. Discomfort means you're leaving the old baseline behind. This is not about perfection. It's about non-negotiables. High standards are simple. I don't miss workouts. I don't tolerate disrespect. I don't ignore my finances. I don't lie to myself. These standards remove decision-making. They remove negotiation. They remove excuses. This is freedom. Remember this. Standards protect discipline. Without standards, discipline fades. With standards, discipline becomes automatic. You don't ask, "Should I?" You say, "This is what I do." Raise the standard, raise the outcome. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Clear standards create clear results. Life does not reward intention. It responds to expectation. And expectations are set by standards. If your standard is average, you'll live an average life, no matter how badly you want more. If your standard is excellence, your actions must rise to meet it. That pressure for alignment builds character. Here's the discipline. Audit your life. One area at a time. Ask, what am I tolerating that I shouldn't? What have I normalized that's holding me back? What standard needs to be raised immediately? Then act. Not gradually. Not someday. Now. Standards are lines in the sand. Once crossed, there is no debate. This is the true source of wealth. Self-respect in action. Raise the standard, raise the outcome. Say it until it becomes identity. Because once standards rise, behavior follows. And once behavior changes, results compound. You've learned that discipline creates freedom. You've learned that standards decide outcomes. Now comes the next evolution. Because standards alone aren't enough. You must become the kind of person who lives those standards automatically. That requires identity. You've raised the bar. Now you must become the person who clears it. Chapter 6. Identity is stronger than motivation. Motivation is temporary. Identity is permanent. That's the difference most people never understand. They try to change behavior without changing who they believe they are. And when motivation fades, they fall back to identity. This is why most change fails. You don't do what you want. You do what you are. Say it again. You do what you are. Motivation gets you started. Identity keeps you consistent. This is the true source of wealth. Not effort, alignment. When behavior matches identity, execution feels natural. When behavior conflicts with identity, resistance appears. That resistance is not laziness. It's misalignment. Look at the difference. I try to run versus I am a runner. One is an activity. The other is an identity. The runner doesn't debate. They don't negotiate. They run because that's who they are. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Identity shapes behavior automatically. People who say, "I'm bad with money," behave differently than those who say, "I manage my money." Same information, different identity, different outcomes. Change the identity, and behavior follows. Change the mind, change the life. This is why discipline becomes effortless for some people. They don't wake up forcing themselves. They wake up expressing who they are. Athletes train because they're athletes. Leaders decide because they're leaders. Disciplined people act because that's their identity. Motivation is emotional. Identity is structural. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to identity. This is why standards matter. Standards reinforce identity. Every action you take casts a vote for the person you believe you are. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce a disciplined identity. Every time you break one, you reinforce a weak identity. The brain keeps score. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity by acting in alignment with who you are becoming. This is not about pretending. It's about practice. Identity is trained through repetition. Remember this. You become what you repeatedly do while calling it who you are. That language matters. Stop saying, I'm trying. Start saying, this is what I do. Stop saying, I want to be disciplined. Start saying, I am disciplined. The brain responds to identity statements. It organizes behavior around them. This is the true source of wealth. Internal consistency. Look at people who struggle with change. They say they want success, but they still see themselves as inconsistent. They say they want health, but they still identify as someone who falls off. That internal conflict creates sabotage, because identity always wins. If you see yourself as undisciplined, you will eventually prove yourself right. So you must interrupt that loop. Act like the person you're becoming. Say it again. Act like the person you're becoming. Not when it's easy. Not when you feel confident. Now, you don't wait to feel like a disciplined person. You act like one, and the feeling follows. Confidence is not a prerequisite. It's a byproduct. This is why action matters so much. Action is identity training. One disciplined action today does more for identity than 1,000 motivational thoughts. Small actions, done consistently, labeled correctly. I am someone who finishes. I am someone who shows up. I am someone who does hard things. This is how identity is installed. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. You are not attracting success. You are becoming someone who produces it. Identity also simplifies decisions. When identity is clear, choices become obvious. A disciplined person doesn't ask, should I skip today? They ask, what time do I start? An organized person doesn't ask, should I plan? They plan, because that's who they are. This removes friction. This conserves energy. This creates momentum. Most people exhaust themselves deciding. Identity removes debate. Act like the person you're becoming. This doesn't mean perfection. It means direction. You will miss days. You will make mistakes. You will adjust. But you never abandon identity. A runner who misses a run is still a runner. A disciplined person who slips returns immediately. That self-correction is identity. This is the true source of wealth. Self-trust. When you trust yourself, you move faster. You take bigger risks. You recover quicker. Everything compounds. So here is the discipline. Decide who you are. Write it down. Not what you want. Who you are becoming. Then act accordingly daily. No negotiation. No waiting. No excuses. Act like the person you're becoming. Let that sentence guide your behavior. Let it shape your habits. Let it define your future. You've learned that standards raise outcomes. You've learned that identity drives behavior. Now comes the next level. Because identity must be reinforced constantly. And the most powerful reinforcement tool is repetition. You are becoming what you repeat. Chapter 7. The Power of Relentless Repetition. Repetition is not weakness. It is mastery. Say it again. Repetition is not weakness. It is mastery. Everything you are good at today was once repeated poorly, slowly, and without confidence. No skill appears fully formed. No discipline arrives complete. No identity installs itself instantly. Repetition builds the brain. This is not opinion. This is neuroscience. Your brain is plastic. It reshapes itself based on what you do repeatedly. Neurons that fire together wire together. Paths that are used strengthen. Paths that are ignored fade. This is how habits form. This is how identity stabilizes. This is how change becomes permanent. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Repetition creates structure. Structure creates flow. Most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they stop repeating too soon. They expect excitement. They expect emotional reward. They expect constant novelty. But growth is boring. Mastery is repetitive. And boredom is the price of excellence. High performers understand this. They do the same basics every day. They show up when it feels dull. They execute when no one is watching. Because repetition removes resistance. At first, discipline feels heavy. With repetition, it feels normal. Then it feels automatic. This is the true source of wealth. Automatic excellence. Affirmations fail for most people because they expect them to feel powerful. But real affirmations feel boring. Why? Because the brain learns through frequency, not intensity. One emotional declaration does nothing. 10,000 calm repetitions rewire identity. Routines work the same way. The most effective routines are not exciting. They are predictable. They are stable. They are repeatable. This is why elite performers guard their routines fiercely. They wake up at the same time. They train at the same time. They focus at the same time. Not because they lack creativity, but because structure frees mental energy. Repetition reduces friction. Friction drains willpower. Reduced friction creates momentum. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Consistency creates capacity. Look at people who struggle. They start strong. They go hard for a week. Then they disappear. Why? Because they chase intensity instead of repetition. Intensity burns out. Repetition compounds. Repetition is not weakness, it is mastery. Say it until it settles in your nervous system. Every identity you admire was installed through repetition. Confidence, focus, discipline, resilience. None of these are personality traits. They are practice states. The brain does not care what you say you want. It only cares what you repeat. If you repeat distraction, you become scattered. If you repeat avoidance, you become fragile. If you repeat discipline, you become reliable. This is the true source of wealth. Reliability compounds. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity by committing to boring excellence. Here is where most people sabotage themselves. They change the plan too often. They chase new systems. They look for shortcuts. But mastery lives in repetition. The same workout, the same schedule, the same standards. Not forever, but long enough for the brain to rewire. Neural rewiring takes time. Days create awareness. Weeks create familiarity. Months create identity. This is why patience is power. You are not behind. You are in training. Repetition is identity reinforcement. Every repeated action says, "This is who I am." Every skipped repetition weakens the signal. But here's the key. You don't need perfect repetition. You need relentless repetition. Miss a day, return the next. Slip once, correct immediately. Momentum lives in return speed. This is how professionals think. They don't spiral after mistakes. They reset and repeat. Because repetition builds resilience. Repetition teaches the nervous system safety. Safety allows performance. Performance creates confidence. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Stability attracts opportunity. Chaotic people repel consistency. Consistent people attract leverage. Repetition is not glamorous. It is quiet. It is patient. It is unstoppable. And that is why it works. Repetition is not weakness. It is mastery. Let that sentence dismantle your resistance. You don't need more excitement. You need more reps. You don't need a new plan. You need to repeat the old one longer. This chapter is your reminder. Success is simple, but not easy. Simple actions, repeated daily, over time. This is how the mind is rewired. This is how identity locks in. This is how results compound. You now understand the engine of transformation. But repetition alone isn't enough. Because the greatest threat to repetition is not failure. It's the voice in your head. The voice that doubts. The voice that negotiates. The voice that keeps you small. You've trained repetition. Now you must eliminate interference. Chapter 8. Eliminate the inner voice that keeps you small. There is a voice in your head. It speaks quietly. It sounds reasonable. And it lies. That voice is not intuition. It is not wisdom. It is conditioning. It was built from past experiences, from fear, from failure, from repetition. And if you don't confront it, it will quietly control your life. This is the most dangerous opponent you face. Not other people, not circumstances, your internal dialogue. The voice says, slow down. You've done enough. This is risky. What if you fail? It pretends to protect you, but its real function is preservation. It wants comfort. It wants familiarity. It wants to keep you small. This is the true source of stagnation. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity. By taking control of the voice behind your choices. Here is the rule. You don't negotiate with weakness. Say it again. You don't negotiate with weakness. Negotiation implies equality. Weakness is not equal to discipline. The inner voice thrives on negotiation. Just today. Just this once. You deserve a break. And every time you listen, you reinforce the pattern. The brain learns quickly. One compromise becomes permission. Permission becomes habit. Habit becomes identity. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Dominant thoughts create dominant outcomes. Elite performers do not eliminate fear. They override it. They hear the voice, and they act anyway, because they understand something crucial. Thoughts are suggestions, not commands. The voice speaks automatically, but you decide who gets authority. Most people confuse thought with truth, but discipline begins with separation. I am not my thoughts. I choose my actions. That separation is power. This is the true source of wealth. Mental sovereignty. Let's identify the patterns. The voice often uses urgency. Now or never. Fix this immediately. Or delay. Later is better. Tomorrow will be easier. Different tactics. Same goal. Avoid discomfort. So you must interrupt it. Thought interruption is not debate. Debate strengthens the voice. Interruption is decisive. When weakness speaks, you respond with action. Not emotion. Not reasoning. Execution. This is the discipline. When the voice says, stop, you say nothing and continue. When the voice says, avoid, you lean in. When the voice says, you can't, you act anyway. This rewires authority. The brain learns who is in charge. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Authority attracts order. Replacement language matters. You don't say, I hope I can. You say, I will handle it. You don't say, this is too hard. You say, this is training. You don't say, I'm overwhelmed. You say, one step. Execute. Language shapes perception. Perception shapes behavior. This is not positive thinking. This is command thinking. Elite performers speak in commands. To themselves first. They do not indulge emotional storytelling. They issue instructions. Focus. Breathe. Move. Short. Direct. Non-negotiable. You don't negotiate with weakness. Say it until it becomes reflex. The voice will not disappear overnight. It will test you. It will get louder when you level up. It will get creative when pressure rises. That is how you know you're growing. Resistance is confirmation. Do not argue with it. Outwork it. Action silences doubt. Every time you act in spite of the voice, you weaken it. Every time you hesitate, you strengthen it. This is the true source of wealth. Decisive action under internal pressure. Over time, the voice loses influence. Not because it stops talking, but because it stops being obeyed. That is mastery. You don't become fearless. You become dominant. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Strength attracts opportunity. You are not here to feel comfortable. You are here to build capacity. And capacity grows when weakness is ignored. Let this be clear. Your inner voice is not your enemy. Your obedience to it is. Take authority back. Interrupt. Replace. Execute. You don't negotiate with weakness. You now understand how to silence self-sabotage. But there is another enemy of execution. Not internal, external, distraction. You've mastered your inner world. Now you must master your attention. Chapter 9. Focus is a superpower in a distracted world. Focus is rare, and rarity creates value. In a world pulling at your attention every second, the ability to focus is a superpower. Most people don't fail from lack of effort. They fail from scattered energy. They try to do everything. They react to everything. They think about everything. And because of that, they finish nothing. This is the true source of wasted potential. Where attention goes, energy flows. Say it again. Where attention goes, energy flows. Your attention is currency. And most people are spending it on distractions that pay nothing back. This is not accidental. It is engineered. Dopamine is the driver. Every notification, every scroll, every quick hit of novelty. It trains your brain to seek stimulation instead of meaning. Short bursts, fast rewards, no depth. And over time, your attention span shrinks. The brain becomes restless. Focus feels uncomfortable. Stillness feels threatening. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Those who control attention control outcomes. Look at deep work. Deep work is focused effort without interruption. It feels slow at first. It feels boring. It feels demanding. But deep work creates breakthroughs. 1 focused hour beats 8 distracted ones. Elite performers understand this. They schedule focus. They eliminate noise. They protect their attention aggressively. Because they know something others don't. Distraction is expensive. Every time you switch tasks, your brain pays a tax. It takes time to refocus. It takes energy to re-enter depth. Scattered effort creates shallow results. Deep focus creates leverage. This is the true source of wealth. Concentrated energy. Entrepreneurs who scale don't multitask. They prioritize. Athletes don't train randomly. They focus on specific outcomes. Artists don't create while distracted. They enter flow. Flow is focus extended over time. And flow is where excellence lives. Where attention goes, energy flows. So look at your day honestly. How often are you interrupted? How often do you check? How often do you switch? Each switch fragments attention. Fragmented attention weakens execution. And weakened execution slows results. This is why most people feel busy, but produce little. They confuse motion with progress. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity. By reclaiming your attention. Here is the discipline. You must train focus like a muscle. At first, it resists. It aches. It wanders. That is normal. Do not punish yourself. Train deliberately. Start with protected blocks. 1 task, 1 objective, 1 window of time. No phone, no tabs, no interruptions. This is not extreme. This is necessary. Focus must be trained in isolation before it can be maintained under pressure. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Sustained attention creates compounding results. Notice how the mind reacts. It looks for escape. It creates urgency. It wants novelty. That is dopamine withdrawal. Stay. Each time you stay, you strengthen focus. Each time you escape, you weaken it. Where attention goes, energy flows. This is why scattered people feel drained. Their energy is leaking everywhere. Focused people feel energized. Their energy is concentrated. Concentration multiplies effort. 1 focused priority beats 10 half-finished ones. This is the true source of wealth. Completion. Protect your mornings. Protect your first hours. That is when attention is strongest. High performers don't give that away to noise. They invest it in creation. They check messages later. They react later. They produce first. Because creation builds momentum. Reaction drains it. This is not about avoiding technology. It's about dominating it. Tools should serve focus, not steal it. Turn off non-essential notifications. Create physical distance from distractions. Design your environment for depth. Environment shapes behavior. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Order attracts clarity. Where attention goes, energy flows. Let that phrase interrupt autopilot. Every time you feel scattered, ask, where is my attention right now? Then redirect it, intentionally. This chapter is your advantage. While others are distracted, you will be focused. While others are reactive, you will be deliberate. And that difference compounds faster than you think. You've mastered your attention. Now comes the next challenge. Because focus is powerful. But focus without resilience breaks under pressure. You must learn to use difficulty as fuel. You've reclaimed your attention. Now you must reframe struggle. Chapter 10. Pain is a teacher, not a stop sign. Pain is inevitable. Struggle is guaranteed. Failure is unavoidable. Every high performer has felt it. Every successful person has endured it. And every story of greatness contains a chapter of suffering. This is the truth most people avoid. They think pain is a stop sign. They think struggle means defeat. They think failure is final. It is not. Pain is a teacher. Pain is feedback. Pain is raw material for transformation. Say it again. Pain is a teacher, not a stop sign. Every setback, every rejection, every loss carries a lesson. Every difficulty is an opportunity in disguise. Every obstacle is training for what comes next. This is the true source of growth. Not comfort, not ease, not luck. Pain either builds you or breaks you. You decide. Let that settle. Pain either builds you or breaks you. You decide. Look at the stories around you. Entrepreneurs who lost everything bounced back stronger than ever. Athletes who were cut from teams returned with record-breaking performances. Writers rejected by publishers wrote books that changed the world. What separates those who succeed from those who quit? Perspective, decision, action. Pain is neutral. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't judge your effort. It simply exists. Your job is to decide what it will mean to you. You can let it crush you. You can let it shrink you. You can let it teach you. You can let it grow you. Pain either builds you or breaks you. You decide. Let me make this real. Rejection feels personal. Failure feels like proof you are not enough. Loss feels like the world has betrayed you. Those feelings are natural, but they are temporary, and they are signals, not verdicts. Every loss contains information. Every failure contains insight. Every rejection contains an invitation. You see, life does not punish. Life corrects. Life is feedback on alignment. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Every painful experience is a teacher in disguise. Every challenge is a rehearsal for mastery. Pain either builds you or breaks you. You decide. The brain remembers pain more than pleasure. It stores failure in vivid detail. It magnifies rejection. Most people react instinctively. Avoid, hide, quit. But the strongest people do the opposite. They lean in. They study the lesson. They adjust. They execute again. Think of Thomas Edison. Thousands of failed experiments. Millions of lights that didn't shine. He didn't give up. He said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. That's perspective. That's reframing pain as feedback. Pain either builds you or breaks you. You decide. Every high performer you admire, every comeback story you respect, all share this trait. They refuse to let pain define them. They refuse to negotiate with weakness. They refused to quit when discomfort arrived. Instead, they studied the pain. They understood the lesson. They acted again, better, stronger, smarter. This is the true source of resilience. Not avoidance. Not denial. Action under pressure. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity by treating every difficult moment as a masterclass. Do not run from pain. Do not argue with it. Do not postpone it. Step into it. Observe it. Learn from it. Transform through it. Pain either builds you or breaks you. You decide. And here is the critical secret. The intensity of your growth is proportional to the intensity of your discomfort. The more you face, the stronger you become. The deeper you endure, the higher you rise. Every obstacle is a teacher. Every criticism is a lesson. Every failure is a step forward. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Suffering followed by action compounds into strength. The difference between victims and victors. Victims hide. Victors study. Victims complain. Victors execute. Victims blame. Victors improve. Pain either builds you or breaks you. You decide. Let that phrase become your anchor in difficulty. Say it when you feel fear. Say it when you feel stuck. Say it when rejection or failure lands hard. Pain either builds you or breaks you. You decide. Remember this. Your comfort zone is not your friend. Your pain zone is your teacher. Your challenge zone is your gym. Every rejection, every failure, every loss is an invitation to level up, to strengthen character, to expand capacity, to master yourself. You've learned focus is a superpower. You've learned repetition installs excellence. Now you've learned how to turn pain into fuel. Your next step is integration, because growth is not about avoiding struggle. It's about using struggle to your advantage. Chapter 11. You must act before you feel ready. You will never feel ready. Confidence does not come first. Action comes first. Most people wait. They wait for the right moment. They wait for the right feelings. They wait for motivation. And while they wait, nothing happens. This is the truth most people refuse to accept. You don't get ready by thinking. You get ready by doing. Action creates belief. Say it again. Action creates belief. Confidence is not a prerequisite. It is a consequence. Look at public speakers. The most confident speakers are not born confident. They were nervous the first time they stood on stage. They trembled. They stumbled. They feared judgment. And then they spoke anyway. With every word, confidence grew. With every presentation, mastery increased. With every stage, identity solidified. Action creates belief. Now look at fitness. The person who steps into the gym for the first time feels uncertain. They feel weak. They feel exposed. But the first lift, the first push-up, the first sprint creates momentum. It teaches the body. It trains the mind. It builds confidence through repetition. Action creates belief. Entrepreneurs feel this too. They hesitate. They overplan. They wait for perfect timing. Then they launch anyway. The first sale builds belief. The first rejection teaches. The first risk transforms hesitation into courage. Action creates belief. Most people are waiting for readiness, as if the universe will deliver permission, as if the world will provide certainty. It won't. Feeling ready is an illusion. Action is real. This is the true source of progress. Not comfort, not certainty. Execution under doubt. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity by stepping before you feel prepared. Here is the principle. Do the hard thing first. Do it imperfectly. Do it afraid. Because fear is a compass. It points to what matters. It points to growth. It points to opportunity. The first step is always the hardest. After that, steps get easier. Momentum compounds. Confidence grows. Action creates belief. Most people confuse comfort with readiness. They say, I'll start when I feel motivated. I'll start when I feel capable. But feeling capable comes after the act, not before. You must act before you feel ready. Identity is forged in motion. Courage is cultivated in effort. Mastery is built by execution. Repeat it. Action creates belief. Every time you act while uncertain, you rewire your nervous system. You expand your tolerance for discomfort. You teach your mind that growth is possible, and your brain learns a powerful lesson. I act. I survive. I succeed. I expand. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Faith follows action. Courage follows action. Strength follows action. Here's the discipline. Stop waiting for signals. Stop waiting for clarity. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Decide now. Move now. Execute now. Action creates belief. The first few attempts will feel awkward. They will feel unpolished. They will feel scary. That is normal. That is the growth zone. Most people quit here. But you will not. Every attempt reinforces identity. Every step builds momentum. Every failure teaches faster than thought ever could. This is the true source of wealth. Execution under uncertainty. Look at history. Every inventor, every athlete, every leader, they acted before they felt ready. They risked before they were comfortable. They performed before they were confident. And the world rewards that behavior. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity. By moving before the moment feels right. Here is the truth. You will never feel fully ready. You will always have doubts. You will always encounter fear. That is normal. That is human. That is proof that you are stretching. But action eliminates hesitation. Action builds courage. Action installs confidence. Repeat after me. Action creates belief. Every time you take the first step, every time you begin without certainty, every time you choose motion over waiting, you teach your mind that possibility is real. You've learned focus is a superpower. You've learned pain is a teacher. You've learned repetition creates mastery. Now comes the next evolution. Because action alone is not enough. You must pair action with vision. Purpose directs energy. You must act before you feel ready, and act toward the life you are building. Chapter 12. Environment shapes behavior. Your environment decides more about your future than your willpower ever will. It is silent, invisible, and powerful. The people around you, the media you consume, the spaces you inhabit, they shape your thoughts, your habits, your outcomes. This is the truth most people refuse to accept. Success is not only about effort. It is about placement. It is about context. Protect your mind like your future depends on it, because it does. Say it again. Protect your mind like your future depends on it, because it does. Every person you spend the most time with influences your identity, your mindset, your behavior. Are they ambitious, disciplined, and relentless? Or are they passive, reactive, and complacent? Because the brain mirrors what it sees. Energy is contagious. Ambition is contagious. Mediocrity is contagious. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Your environment programs you before you even realize it. Look at media. The shows you binge. The podcasts you consume. The social media feeds you scroll. Every bit of content rewires your perception of reality. It sets your reference points. It shapes your expectations. If you fill your mind with distraction, gossip, fear, or complaint, you will act small. You will tolerate less. You will delay your future. Protect your mind like your future depends on it, because it does. Now look at routines. The spaces you occupy, the objects you surround yourself with, the habits you allow. They dictate your performance more than willpower ever could. The person who organizes their day, controls their space, and removes distractions, performs at a higher level automatically. The person who tolerates clutter, chaos, and noise struggles with focus, clarity, and momentum. Environment shapes behavior. It is not a suggestion, it is a law. You cannot out-discipline a poor environment. You cannot outthink constant negativity. You cannot outwill daily distraction. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity. By designing your environment with ruthless intention. Be selective with your company. Be intentional with your media. Be deliberate with your routines. Notice how high performers act. They guard their mornings. They curate their circles. They manage input like it is currency. They understand. Your energy, your attention, your focus, all are fragile resources. Protect your mind like your future depends on it, because it does. Remove toxic relationships. Remove passive entertainment. Remove clutter that steals attention. Create spaces that support growth. Surround yourself with ambition. Fill your mind with possibility. Structure your routines to enforce discipline. This is not optional. This is foundational. Your brain will default to whatever environment you provide. Default equals destiny. If you allow chaos, distraction, or negativity, you will be dragged down unconsciously. If you design clarity, positivity, and structure, you will be lifted automatically. Protect your mind like your future depends on it, because it does. Even your digital environment matters. Notifications off. Devices curated. Feeds cleaned. Time reclaimed. This is not avoidance. This is strategic defense. Energy is finite. Attention is scarce. You cannot afford to waste it on mediocrity. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity. By ruthlessly protecting what enters your mind. Your habits follow your environment. Your results follow your habits. Your identity follows your results. If you want transformation, start with your surroundings. Start with the people you allow into your life. Start with the content you consume. Start with the spaces you inhabit. Protect your mind like your future depends on it, because it does. Notice the compounding effect. A disciplined environment makes small actions effortless. A toxic environment makes great effort impossible. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Your life rises or falls based on what your brain is exposed to consistently. Ask yourself, are my environments shaping me into the person I want to become? Or are they shaping me into someone I will regret being? Then act. Cut what weakens. Build what strengthens. Guard what matters. Protect your mind like your future depends on it, because it does. You now understand the principle. Your environment is not background noise. It is not neutral. It is the foundation of your life. Every high performer you admire acts on this truth. Every successful person structures their life with this law in mind. You must do the same. You've learned focus is a superpower. You've learned pain is a teacher. You've learned action creates belief. Now you've learned that environment determines trajectory. Protect your mind like your future depends on it, because it does. And with this lesson mastered, you are ready to confront the next challenge. The only thing stronger than environment is identity itself. Chapter 13. The long game always wins. Most people want results instantly. They want change now. They want success tomorrow. This is the trap. The world teaches shortcuts, hacks, instant gratification. But real growth, real mastery, does not work that way. The long game always wins. Say it again. The long game always wins. Consistency beats intensity. Repeated, small actions compound into massive results. A single sprint does not build a marathon body. A single day of work does not build a business empire. A single week of practice does not create mastery. Consistency beats intensity. Look at fitness. The person who lifts once and quits sees nothing. The person who trains daily, even imperfectly, transforms their body. Muscle, endurance, health, strength, built slowly, reliably, intentionally. Consistency beats intensity. Look at wealth. The person who tries to get rich quick often fails. The person who saves, invests, and compounds over time becomes financially free. Small, repeated decisions over months and years determine financial destiny. Consistency beats intensity. Look at mastery. The musician, the athlete, the writer, the entrepreneur. They did not excel overnight. They practiced, rehearsed, failed, corrected, and repeated. Each small step compounded into expertise. Consistency beats intensity. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. The universe rewards those who show up consistently, not those who show up once in a blaze of effort. Delayed gratification is your superpower. It is the difference between fleeting moments and lasting transformation. It is the difference between mediocrity and excellence. The long game always wins. Most people quit because they do not see immediate results. They judge progress by the first week, the first month, the first failure. But results are delayed. Growth is invisible at first. Change is silent. This is why most people fail. They cannot endure the invisible. They cannot persist through the slow. The long game always wins. Imagine planting a tree. You do not see the roots grow. You do not see the trunk thicken overnight. But water it daily, nurture it, protect it, and in time, it becomes a giant. The same is true for your life. Every small decision, every repeated action, every consistent effort builds a foundation, strengthens identity, expands your potential. Consistency beats intensity. Repeat it. Consistency beats intensity. Every high performer understands this principle. Every world-class athlete, every successful entrepreneur, every creative genius. They play the long game. They endure discomfort. They persist through invisible progress. They understand that patience is power. This is not a passive waiting. This is active, intentional persistence. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity. By committing to daily, consistent action. Intensity is seductive. It feels good. It produces a high for a short time. But it does not build lasting results. Consistency compounds silently. Day by day, week by week, year by year. Your small actions multiply. Your results explode. Your life transforms. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to be extreme. You need to be consistent. Look at your habits, your repeated thoughts, your daily routines. They are shaping your future. Every small action adds up. Every repeated effort compounds. The long game always wins. Every setback is temporary. Every failure is part of the process. Every struggle is a step in the journey. Patience is not passive. Patience is power. Persistence is unstoppable. Consistency is unbreakable. This is why world-class performers outlast competitors. Not because they are faster, stronger, or smarter initially. Because they show up again and again. Because they refuse to quit. Because they play the long game. Consistency beats intensity. Even when it feels slow. Even when results are invisible. Even when doubts rise. The long game always wins. Ask yourself, are you building daily? Are you acting repeatedly? Are you compounding effort? Or are you chasing short-term highs? Instant gratification? Quick fixes? The universe rewards patient builders. It rewards those who endure. It rewards those who persist. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity by playing the long game relentlessly. Remember this. Small actions, repeated consistently, produce massive outcomes. Small efforts, compounded over time, become unstoppable forces. Small decisions, maintained daily, determine your destiny. Consistency beats intensity. The long game always wins. You've learned focus is a superpower. You've learned action creates belief. You've learned environment shapes behavior. Now commit to the long game. Your results are waiting. Chapter 14. Become comfortable being uncomfortable. Growth does not happen in comfort. Transformation does not happen in ease. Strength is not forged in safety. This is a truth most people avoid. Comfort is a slow killer. It numbs ambition. It shrinks potential. If you want to rise, you must learn to embrace discomfort. Hard choices now, easy life later. Say it again. Hard choices now, easy life later. Every challenge you avoid, every difficulty you sidestep, adds weight to your future. Every fear left untested, every skill unpracticed, is a missed opportunity to level up. Voluntary hardship is your training ground. It is how you grow tolerance. It is how you build resilience. It is how you expand capacity. Look at elite athletes. They push their bodies when tired. They train in rain, in heat, in cold. They endure pain that most would flee. And that voluntary suffering creates extraordinary performance. Hard choices now, easy life later. Look at leaders. They have the hard conversations. They make the unpopular decisions. They embrace responsibility that others avoid. Hard choices now, easy life later. Look at personal development. You do the cold showers. You wake up early. You face the mirror of self-discipline. Every small, voluntary discomfort trains your mind to endure life's real challenges. Hard choices now, easy life later. Most people avoid discomfort. They run from cold. They hide from confrontation. They delay growth for temporary ease. And that is why most people never reach their potential. Because ease feels good today, but costs you tomorrow. Hard choices now, easy life later. Discomfort is a teacher. Fear is a guide. Resistance is your coach. Every time you lean into difficulty, you expand your capacity for success. Every time you endure what others avoid, you gain a competitive advantage that cannot be taught. Hard choices now, easy life later. Even small practices matter. A 5-minute cold shower trains your mind. A difficult conversation improves your courage. A disciplined morning routine builds consistency. Hard choices now, easy life later. The principle is simple. Suffering voluntarily prepares you for unavoidable challenges. Discipline today creates freedom tomorrow. Resistance now builds resilience for life later. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity. By embracing voluntary discomfort. This is not punishment. This is not suffering for suffering's sake. This is strategic growth. You endure deliberately, intentionally, purposefully. Look at entrepreneurs. They take risks. They face rejection. They persist when the world says quit. Hard choices now, easy life later. Look at soldiers and elite performers. They train beyond their limits. They endure pain, stress, and pressure voluntarily. They do what most avoid. Hard choices now, easy life later. Your comfort zone is a trap. Your ease is temporary. Your potential is waiting just beyond the edge of discomfort. Step into it. Lean into it. Endure it. Hard choices now, easy life later. Every voluntary hardship compounds. Every moment you practice discomfort makes future challenges easier. Every time you choose growth over ease, you expand your identity. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Life rewards those who endure voluntarily. Life rewards those who choose growth when it is uncomfortable. The paradox is simple. Discomfort today produces freedom tomorrow. Pain today produces mastery tomorrow. Hard choices today produce ease tomorrow. Hard choices now, easy life later. Repeat it. Hard choices now, easy life later. You've learned consistency beats intensity. You've learned action creates belief. You've learned environment shapes behavior. You've learned the long game always wins. Now, integrate discomfort as your ally. Let it train your mind. Let it sharpen your focus. Let it harden your resolve. Because those who endure voluntarily, those who face life without avoidance, those who choose the hard path, will live a life of extraordinary results. Hard choices now, easy life later. This is your edge. This is your advantage. This is the mindset of the unstoppable. Every high performer you admire does this. Every legend in history does this. Every master of their craft does this. They do not wait for comfort. They do not hope for ease. They embrace difficulty as the pathway to freedom. Hard choices now, easy life later. This is your practice. This is your training. This is your transformation. And with this truth mastered, you are ready to take the final step, turning knowledge, discipline, and growth into unstoppable results. Chapter 15. Decide once, then execute daily. The most powerful people in the world do not negotiate with themselves every morning. They do not waste mental energy deciding what they should do. They decide once, and then they execute daily. Decide, commit, execute. Say it again. Decide, commit, execute. Most people live in a constant state of negotiation. They debate with themselves. Should I start today? Am I ready? Will this work? And by the time the morning is over, the day is gone. You cannot build a life like this. You cannot achieve mastery like this. You cannot win consistently like this. Decide once, and then execute. High performers do not think daily about whether to train, to create, to act. They have made the decision. The line in the sand is drawn. Every day they execute. Decide, commit, execute. Look at elite athletes. They wake up early. They train. They practice. They push themselves even when tired, even when sore, even when unmotivated. They do not negotiate. They decided once, long ago, that they would be disciplined. Then they execute daily. Decide, commit, execute. Look at entrepreneurs. They chose the path of creation and risk. They decided once, I will build. And every day they move forward. Every task, every call, every step. They execute because the decision has already been made. Decide, commit, execute. This is the spiritual science behind abundance. Indecision is a thief. Every second spent questioning is energy wasted. Every moment of hesitation compounds over time into lost results. The line in the sand is clarity. The line in the sand is freedom. The line in the sand is identity. Decide once, and then execute daily. Your mind will try to negotiate. Your comfort will plead for delay. Your doubts will whisper excuses. Do not listen. Do not negotiate. Do not compromise. Decide. Commit. Execute. Look at history. Every successful person, every master, every legend, made a decision early, and they honored it every day. They did not ask themselves each morning if they wanted to be great. They executed because greatness had already been decided. Decide, commit, execute. Even the smallest decisions matter. The person who decides to wake early each morning, to train, to read, to plan, to act, builds momentum that compounds. The person who negotiates daily, who debates, who delays, who waits for motivation, will never experience compounding, will never reach potential, will never see extraordinary results. Decide once, and then execute daily. Every habit, every discipline, every routine is built on this principle. Decide to write, decide to speak, decide to create, decide to grow. Then, each day, execute. Consistency compounds. Action builds belief. Momentum produces results. Decide, commit, execute. The most successful people do not feel like executing. They do it anyway, because they decided once. The decision removed the question. The decision removed resistance. The decision removed negotiation. Decide, commit, execute. Awaken your creative power to attract prosperity. By making the decision today, and honoring it tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. This is how empires are built. This is how mastery is achieved. This is how lives are transformed. Decide once, I will be disciplined. Decide once, I will act. Decide once, I will pursue excellence. Then execute every day. Without question, without hesitation, without compromise. Decide, commit, execute. This is not optional. This is not negotiable. This is the law of results. Everything else, motivation, inspiration, comfort, certainty, is secondary to this principle. The line in the sand is your identity. The line in the sand is your future. The line in the sand is your freedom. Decide once. Commit for life. Execute daily. High performers understand this. Legends understand this. Champions live this. Now it is your turn. Draw your line in the sand. Make the decision. Honor it daily. Decide. Commit. Execute. This is your ultimate edge. This is the mastery of life itself. Everything you've learned in this book. Your mind is the architect. Your standards shape your reality. Action creates belief. The long game wins. Environment matters. Discomfort builds resilience. Now it all comes down to this. Decide. Commit. Execute. No more negotiation. No more waiting. No more hesitation. Draw your line. Honor your decision. Execute every single day. Decide. Commit. Execute. The life you want. The results you deserve. The mastery you seek. It is on the other side of your decision. Decide. Commit. Execute. And with that, your transformation begins. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready. It begins today. In closing, you've heard the truth. Not once, but again and again. Because transformation doesn't happen through information. It happens through decision and repetition. You now understand that your thoughts shape your habits shape your identity, and your identity shapes your life. Nothing is missing. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more time. You don't need permission. You need standards. Decide who you are. Decide what you tolerate. Decide what you do every single day, no matter how you feel. If you walk away from this audiobook and do nothing, nothing changes. But if you take one principle, one discipline, one standard, and apply it starting today, your future self will thank you. This is your challenge. Act as the person you want to become for the next 30 days. No excuses. No negotiation. No retreat. Repetition will do the rest. Stay disciplined. Stay focused. Stay relentless. Your life is waiting for your decision. Make it now.